First, take out your phones, and if you don't have one, you can share with the person next to you, and open your phone's internet browser to app.berniesanders.com to create your account. You can do it on any device connected to the internet, and it only takes a couple of seconds. Again, that's app.berniesanders.com. So everyone should be there right now making your account, and once you log in, you'll see just how easy it is for you to tell us who you're talking to, both people you know into friend mode and people you don't know in community canvas mode. For the friend-to-friend mode, you can think about all the different relationships that you have. Your family members, your friends, childhood and school friends, your coworkers. Spend an uninterrupted 5 to 10 minutes to write a list of all their first names and last names and the city in which they live in. Brainstorm for as long as you can, because afterwards you'll want to search for everyone you listed in the Burn app. Our strategy is about talking to voters, listening to what matters to them, and connecting by sharing our stories. It's about both talking to people you know and talking to people you don't know. Now you can organize with other volunteers to go out and talk to people in your community, or use the app on your own to log conversations as you go about your daily life. Whenever you talk to a voter, we just want you to tell us who you're talking to using the app so that we can follow up with them and make sure that they are registered to vote, know where to vote, and however you're doing it, this comes down to how many people are willing to put in the work to build our grassroots movement.
That's Ray Tangway. Does everybody know Ray?
No. I should know him. I work for him.
Okay, you all know Laura Simon.
Yeah.
And do all of you know Nat Air? Nat is the guy who's looking in to the camera there. And what this is about, hold it. What this is about is there's a program that goes on television, Channel 15. It's a special channel.
I've seen that.
And it goes on once a week, and we deal with housing, problems of housing in the city. And what Nat wants to film this week is this special camp that you guys are going to, okay?
Okay.
Now, remember, everybody out there in the TV land who's watching us doesn't know as much about this summer camp as you do. So what your job is to try to explain to the people what's going on. Who wants to help me explain what's going on? Raise your hand. Okay. Well, why don't you start off? What is your name?
Court.
Clark?
Yeah, Court.
Okay. And you live at Franklin Square?
Yep.
Okay. And you're going to this summer camp. How's it going so far?
Pretty good.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what you like about it, and what you don't like about it, and what you're looking forward to.
Well, I'm looking for, well, the stuff that I like here is swimming.
Okay, and how often do you get a chance to go swimming?
Let me see. We use
4 times a day.
No, one at a time. Clark.
almost every day.
Okay, we get down to the lake.
Yeah.
Okay, are you a good swimmer? Do you know how to swim yet?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know.
Will you go to North Beach or Letty Park?
North.
Okay. Who knows who Ethan Allen? Have you been to Ethan Allen's home yet?
Yep. Yeah.
Who knows who Ethan Allen is?
Ira Allen's brother.
Yeah, he's Ira Allen's brother, but Ira Allen was Ethan Allen's brother.
No kidding. Oh, I know.
That's right.
These are the Green Mountain Boys.
Good. And you know anything about that? What does that have to do with Vermont history? Who knows? Anybody learn anything about that in school yet?
Yeah.
You know something? What is your name?
Jamie.
Jamie. Well, what do you know about Ethan Allen? You know much about him?
Yeah, he does.
Well, he lived in that house down there anyhow,
I know
huh?
a lot.
Okay. Well, Ethan Allen was he was a pretty interesting guy. That's right. He was alive at the time when Vermont became a republic, and was, as you say, he was active in the Green Mountain Boys. You know what that was about? Who knows what the Green Mountain Boys was about? You know that there was a time when Vermont was part of New York State. There was a big debate whether Vermont...
And New Hampshire.
That's right. And there was a time where some towns in Vermont were part of New Hampshire. And there was a whole question, should Vermont join the United States of America? Should Vermont join Canada? You know, sometimes there were some people who thought that Vermont should join Canada. Wait a minute. No, you were not born stupid. Come here. Come here.
That's on the outside. Check the inside. Maybe you'll see something.
That's right. Do you think that... What is your name?
Ernest.
You think you're dumb?
Yep.
Well, I'm the mayor of the city, and I don't think you're dumb, Ernest. And you know where? The only way I think you're dumb? I think when you think you're dumb. Because you're not. But if you get into the habit of thinking you're dumb and you can't do anything, then that's what you're going to end up doing, is not doing anything. All right? And I bet you can read. Can you know how to read yet? Can you read yet pretty well? And you can write? And I think when you get into that, you're going to find that reading is interesting. There's a lot of things to be known out there. Okay? All right? And I would hope that you don't give up on yourself.
In the speech today, you talk about a 21st century economic Bill of Rights, and you hearken back to FDR and are kind of pitching this as a continuation of FDR's legacy, even Martin Luther King Jr.
In our day, certain economic truths have become accepted as self-evident. A second Bill of Rights, under which a new basis of security and prosperity can be established for all, regardless of station or race or creed. Among these are the right to a useful and remunerative job, the right to earn enough to provide adequate food and clothing and recreation, the right of every farmer to raise and sell his products at a return which will give him and his family a decent living, the right of every businessman, large and small, to trade in an atmosphere of freedom, freedom from unfair competition and domination by monopolies at home or abroad, the right of every family to a decent home, the right to adequate medical care and the opportunity to achieve and enjoy good health, the right to adequate protection from the economic fears of old age, sickness, accident, and unemployment, the right to a good education. All of these rights spell security. And after this war is won, we must be prepared to move forward in the implementation of these rights to new goals of human happiness and well-being. For unless there is security here at home, there cannot be lasting peace in the world.
Can you explain how
Right.
this is pertinent to a vision of democratic socialism?
Absolutely. Back in 1944, in a little remembered State of the Union speech, it was at the end of World War II, and Roosevelt said, look, we have a Bill of Rights in this country and we have a Constitution, I'm paraphrasing him, which says that we have all kinds of great rights. We have freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, all of that is great. But what we do not have is an economic Bill of Rights. We don't guarantee a decent standard of living to all of our people. That's what he said, and he died a year later. And in fact, that mantle has never really been picked up. So what I am saying today is that are we truly free? And this is in a sense what Roosevelt was saying. If you're going out and you're working 70 or 80 hours a week because the wages you're working under are starvation wages, are you free if you can't afford to go to the doctor in the wealthiest country in the history of the world and you get sicker or maybe you die because you can't afford health insurance? Are you free if you are a young, bright person but you can't afford to go to college, or you leave school $50,000 or $100,000 in debt? Are you free if you're sleeping out on the street tonight? Anderson, 500,000 Americans, including many veterans, are sleeping out on the street tonight. So what I am saying, picking up from Roosevelt, that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, now is the time to finally say that economic rights are human rights, that everybody in this country deserves a job at decent pay, that health care is a human right, that a full education is a human right, a clean environment is a human right, affordable housing is a human right, retirement security. We got millions of old people, senior citizens of this country, who literally cannot afford the prescription drugs they desperately need.
I mean, you are leaning into democratic socialism. Now, obviously, everybody's known you're democratic socialist, but I mean, you are clearly trying to sort of explain what your view of what that means to an American population and many people who hear the socialism part,
right,
maybe not the democratic part, and President Trump ultimately will be yelling Venezuela at you as much as possible.
Yeah, well, that's exactly the point. And the other point that I made today is that, in fact, people like Donald Trump are also socialists, except they are corporate socialists. They are prepared and do provide hundreds of billions of dollars every single year in subsidies and tax breaks to large corporations and the wealthy. Anderson, you will remember very well the Wall Street bailout. Now, Wall Street is the epitome of unfettered capitalism. That's what they believe. Except when their greed and illegal behavior nearly destroyed the economy, they went begging to the Congress. They were big-time socialists, and they said, we need federal help. Give us $700 billion from the Treasury and trillions of dollars in low-interest loans from the Federal Reserve. You got the fossil fuel industry today, which is literally destroying the planet, and they get billions of dollars in subsidies and tax breaks. You have Amazon, owned by the wealthiest person in this country, Jeff Bezos, made $11 billion last year. That's what Amazon made in profits. They didn't pay a nickel in federal income taxes. So, in fact, you got Donald Trump himself, as part of his housing endeavors, received tens and tens of millions of dollars in subsidies and tax breaks. So you do have socialism in this country, except, as Martin Luther King reminded us, it's socialism for the very rich and unfettered individualism for the poor.
Talking to Senator Bernie Sanders tonight about embracing the label that President Trump and even some Democrats treat as an epithet, socialist, in his case, democratic socialist, which the senator today sought to weave into a progressive tapestry, as it were, tracing back to the New Deal and before. He also cited Franklin Roosevelt's open scorn for government organized by money, as FDR called it, seeming to welcome, as FDR did at the time, the attacks on him that have already begun. Here's President Trump at a Republican fundraiser in Iowa last night, painting Democrats as angry and extreme.
The Democrat Party has never been angrier. They're so angry. Did you ever see people so angry? For what? For what? These are angry people. Every day, the Democrat Party is becoming more and more unhinged and more extreme. They're going crazy. Do you love it? I sort of love it, right?
Back now with Senator Sanders. You talked today in your speech about compassion, justice, and love as sort of the hallmarks of how you see leadership and your leadership. You know how the president's going to paint your talk of democratic socialism. Besides, Venezuela, do enough Americans know what you mean by that and what that actually looks like?
Well, Anderson, that's why I'm on your show tonight.
Well, that's why I'm asking you.
Look, what we have to understand, just for example, the United States is the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a right. In many countries in Europe, Germany for one, you go to college and the cost of college is zero. I think in Finland they actually pay you to go to college. In most countries around the world, the level of income and wealth inequality, which in the United States today is worse than at any time since the 1920s, with 3 families owning more wealth than the bottom half of America, that level of income and wealth inequality is much less severe than it is right here in the United States.
But as you know, the taxes in many of those countries are much higher than they are, the individual personal taxes much higher than they are in the United States.
But I suspect that a lot of people in this country would be delighted to pay more in taxes if they had comprehensive health care as a human right. I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. You go to the doctor anytime you want. You don't take out your wallet. You have heart surgery, you have a heart transplant, you come out of the hospital, it costs you nothing. Your kids in many countries around the world can go to public colleges and universities tuition free. Wages in many cases are higher. So there is a trade-off, but at the end of the day, I think that most people will believe they're going to be better off when their kids have educational opportunities without out-of-pocket expenses, when they have health care as a human right, when they have affordable housing, when they have decent retirement, security. I think most Americans will understand that that is a good deal.
I want to ask the audience a question. If you could raise your hand here. A show of hands of how many people get their insurance from work, private insurance, right now. How many get it from private insurance? Okay. Now, of those, how many are willing to transition to what the senator says, a government-run system?
When somebody is looking at you as a candidate, when someone is looking at Senator Elizabeth Warren as a candidate, both progressive candidates, obviously, there are now several polls that have you trailing Elizabeth Warren. It's kind of ridiculous to look at polls at this stage of a primary battle. But she does not have the label Democratic Socialist. You do. Is it a liability?
I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Look, I mean, I certainly have known Elizabeth for many, many years, and she's a friend.
Because she says she's a capitalist.
Yeah, I know. And I know many of the other candidates who are, in my view, knowing them personally, well-intentioned and decent people who want to do the right thing. But here is the point, Anderson, that I want to make. One of the reasons that so many Americans are dispirited about the political process is they hear candidates come forward and say, I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do that, but nothing happens. And the reason for that is not that the candidates are lying. It is we have to deal with the reality that we don't talk about too much. And that is the power structure of America, the fact that the folks on Wall Street, in the drug companies, in the insurance companies, in the military industrial complex, in the fossil fuel industry, have so much power that no president alone, not me, not anybody else, can do it alone. And that is why I talk about us, not me, in our campaign, why I talk about a political revolution. If you want to transform our energy system and you want to combat climate change, words are not good enough. We have to bring millions of people together to tell the fossil fuel industry they will not continue to destroy this planet. You want Medicare for all? You're going to have to stand up to the insurance companies. You want to cut the cost of prescription drugs in half, which is what I think we should do, you're going to have to stand up to the incredibly wealthy and powerful pharmaceutical industry.
There are growing calls to address these inequalities, particularly the wage inequality, with more taxes. In particular, in the United States, there's been a call by Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez to tax people earning over $10 million at a 70% tax rate. The current top rate in the United States is 30%.
First, take out your phones, and if you don't have one, you can share with the person next to you, and open your phone's internet browser to app.berniesanders.com to create your account. You can do it on any device connected to the internet, and it only takes a couple of seconds. Again, that's app.berniesanders.com. So everyone should be there right now making your account, and once you log in, you'll see just how easy it is for you to tell us who you're talking to, both people you know into friend mode and people you don't know in community canvas mode. For the friend-to-friend mode, you can think about all the different relationships that you have. Your family members, your friends, childhood and school friends, your coworkers. Spend an uninterrupted 5 to 10 minutes to write a list of all their first names and last names and the city in which they live in. Brainstorm for as long as you can, because afterwards you'll want to search for everyone you listed in the Burn app. Our strategy is about talking to voters, listening to what matters to them, and connecting by sharing our stories. It's about both talking to people you know and talking to people you don't know. Now you can organize with other volunteers to go out and talk to people in your community, or use the app on your own to log conversations as you go about your daily life. Whenever you talk to a voter, we just want you to tell us who you're talking to using the app so that we can follow up with them and make sure that they are registered to vote, know where to vote, and however you're doing it, this comes down to how many people are willing to put in the work to build our grassroots movement.
%. Michael Dell, do you support this?
I just want to say I'm thrilled that they're asking.
Wow. Well, look, I mean, my wife and I set up a foundation about 20 years ago, and we would have contributed quite a bit more than a 70% tax rate on my income, on my annual income. And I feel much more comfortable with our ability as a private foundation to allocate those funds than I do giving them to the government.
All right.
So no, I'm not supportive of that.
Well, Keith.
And I don't think it would help the growth of the U.S. economy.
Oh, that's interesting. And can you say a little bit more about why? Why you don't think it would?
Well, name a country where that's worked, ever.
United States.
Briefly in the 80s. Maybe.
No. From about the 1930s through about the 1960s, the tax rate averaged about 70%. At times it was up as high as 95%. And those were actually pretty good years for growth. So I don't have a strong opinion on that proposal. A lot of the devil is in the details. But I think it's, there's actually a lot of economics that suggests that it's not necessarily going to hurt growth.
Ocasio-Cortez wants that percentage to be 70% for anything over $10 million.
Super rich people wouldn't pay 70% of their income. They'd only pay 70% taxes on the money over the $10 million cutoff.
70% is a lot more than current rates, but it's not unprecedented. After World War II, under President Eisenhower, the tax rate was 91% on annual income over $200,000, which would be around $3 million in 2018. Under Kennedy and Johnson, the top rate fell to 70%, the same as Ocasio-Cortez's proposal. Reagan cut it to 50%, and after the 1986 tax reform, it fell to 38%.
When I sign this bill into law, America will have the lowest marginal tax rates and the most modern tax code among major industrialized nations.
First, take out your phones, and if you don't have one, you can share with the person next to you, and open your phone's internet browser to app.berniesanders.com to create your account. You can do it on any device connected to the internet, and it only takes a couple of seconds. Again, that's app.berniesanders.com. So everyone should be there right now making your account, and once you log in, you'll see just how easy it is for you to tell us who you're talking to, both people you know into friend mode and people you don't know in community canvas mode. For the friend-to-friend mode, you can think about all the different relationships that you have. Your family members, your friends, childhood and school friends, your coworkers. Spend an uninterrupted 5 to 10 minutes to write a list of all their first names and last names and the city in which they live in. Brainstorm for as long as you can, because afterwards you'll want to search for everyone you listed in the Burn app. Our strategy is about talking to voters, listening to what matters to them, and connecting by sharing our stories. It's about both talking to people you know and talking to people you don't know. Now you can organize with other volunteers to go out and talk to people in your community, or use the app on your own to log conversations as you go about your daily life. Whenever you talk to a voter, we just want you to tell us who you're talking to using the app so that we can follow up with them and make sure that they are registered to vote, know where to vote, And however you're doing it, this comes down to how many people are willing to put in the work to build our grassroots movement.
After New Hampshire, we wanted to know more about Bernie Sanders. He served 4 terms as mayor of Burlington, Vermont, 8 terms in the U.S. House, and was elected to the Senate in 2006. But he grew up in Brooklyn, the son of poor Jewish immigrants from Poland.
So most of the kids lived in the apartment houses. I grew up in that one, good friends across the street. It was my mother's dream to get out of the apartment and get a home of her own, but she died young and she never achieved that dream.
How old was your mother when she passed away?
46.
How old were you?
19, I think.
How did that affect you?
Significantly. Not having enough money was a cause of constant tension. And when you're 5 or 6 years of age and your parents are yelling at each other, it's, you think back on it now, it's traumatic and it's hard.
Must have been a lot of joys up and down this
Of course
block as
there were.
well.
Oh, you kidding? I would get up on a Saturday morning when we weren't in school. We used to play with what we call the Spalding rubber ball. And you would throw it, starting off with the red brick, the white brick, red brick, white brick, and then, you would win, I guess, if you threw it all the way up there. Literally, I would leave 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, and I would come back at 5 o'clock in the evening, exhausted. I had been running all day long, but it was a happy exhaustion. And by the way, I learned something also about democracy. We didn't have much adult supervision. So the games were all determined not by adult coaches, kids themselves. So we would choose up a team. There was no other person dictating anything. We worked out our own rules. And it was a very interesting way to grow up.
Bernie Sanders in Brooklyn.
Yes, hi. Thanks for taking my call. Let me say this. For the last election, I trusted Trump. I thought he was going to throw a monkey wrench into the elite establishment and make America great again. I'm just a regular guy. I'm in sales, and I thought that the whole economy would change across the spectrum. Well, here we are 4 years later, and I got to say, he lied. I'm no better off. My friends who are regular workers are no better off. The Midwest, no better off. And so this year, if I don't have someone to challenge him on our side, I'm voting for Bernie. I'm voting for Bernie because he makes the most sense. By the way, I'm paying $387 for a bottle of diabetic medicine. So there are a lot of issues I like with Bernie, and it just makes more sense. Thanks.
So is healthcare your top issue?
Absolutely. I think healthcare is a top issue for what we call human beings, because without our health, we're dead, you see. So health has to be the top issue for everyone, regardless of party. There have been 6 consecutive presidents that have favored the rich companies, and I'm what you call an old-fashioned Republican. That's why I voted for Trump, because he promised the Midwest is going to regain what it once had. Ask anyone in the Midwest. Ask people in the middle of the country, are they better off? The answer is hell no. And Bernie Sanders is the only person running that's for actual people.
The richest 0.5% earn as much as the bottom 27%, and the top 3% earn as much as the bottom 40%.
Well, needless to say, I don't think this revolution is going to happen overnight. We have a handful of people with the wealth and with the power.
There is something wrong in this world where some people have billions of dollars and other people have nothing.
The rich people control what's going on. Elections are bought and sold. We could spend 6 hours talking about all of the problems that exist in this country.
In which the richest 1% of the population now own over a third of the wealth.
At the same time as working people and poor people grew poorer and their tax burden went up.
People are saying, give me a break. You got to be kidding.
In industry after industry, they're paying their CEOs huge salaries.
The wealthiest people in this country have never had it so good.
But I think what we should understand is that right now there is an emergency. Middle class, working families, elderly people cannot afford to see prices go higher and higher.
That's wrong. It's got to be changed.
The good news out there is that we are seeing a lot of ordinary people beginning to come
And say that our country belonged to all of us and not the billionaire class. Let me tell you, I run vigorous campaigns.
I am proud to announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
And together, we are going to make it happen. We need a political revolution.
When the top 0.1% today owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%.
But this is what I believe and have always believed.
That real change never, ever takes place from the top on down.
It is always from the bottom on up.
Welcome to the political revolution.
First, take out your phones, and if you don't have one, you can share with the person next to you, and open your phone's internet browser to app.berniesanders.com to create your account. You can do it on any device connected to the internet, and it only takes a couple of seconds. Again, that's app.berniesanders.com. So everyone should be there right now making your account, and once you log in, you'll see just how easy it is for you to tell us who you're talking to, both people you know into friend mode and people you don't know in community canvas mode. For the friend-to-friend mode, you can think about all the different relationships that you have. Your family members, your friends, childhood and school friends, your coworkers. Spend an uninterrupted 5 to 10 minutes to write a list of all their first names and last names and the city in which they live in. Brainstorm for as long as you can, because afterwards you'll want to search for everyone you listed in the Burn app. Our strategy is about talking to voters, listening to what matters to them, and connecting by sharing our stories. It's about both talking to people you know and talking to people you don't know. Now you can organize with other volunteers to go out and talk to people in your community, or use the app on your own to log conversations as you go about your daily life. Whenever you talk to a voter, we just want you to tell us who you're talking to using the app so that we can follow up with them and make sure that they are registered to vote, know where to vote, and however you're doing it, this comes down to how many people are willing to put in the work to build our grassroots movement.
As we launch this campaign for president,
You deserve to know where I came from, because family history obviously heavily influences the values that we develop as adults. I was born literally a few miles away from here on East 26th Street and Kings Highway. My family and I lived in a 3.5-room rent-controlled apartment. My father was a paint salesman who worked hard his entire life but never made much money. My mother raised my brother and me. I learned a great deal about immigration as a child because my father came from Poland at the age of 17 without a nickel in his pocket, without knowing one word of English. He came to the United States to escape the crushing poverty that existed in his community and to escape widespread anti-Semitism. And it was a good thing that he came to this country, because virtually his entire family was wiped out by Hitler and Nazi barbarism. I am not going to tell you that I grew up in a home of desperate poverty. That would not be true. But what I will tell you is that coming from a lower middle-class family, I will never forget about how money, or really lack of money, was always a point of stress in our family. My mother's dream was that someday our family would move out of that rent-controlled apartment to a home of our own. That dream was never fulfilled. She died young while we still lived in that rent-controlled apartment. My experience as a child living in a family that struggled economically powerfully influenced my life and my values. I know where I came from. And that is something I will never forget. Unlike Donald Trump, who shut down the government and left 800,000 federal employees without income to pay their bills, I know what it's like to be in a family that lives paycheck to paycheck. I did not have a father who gave me millions of dollars to build luxury skyscrapers, casinos, and country clubs. I did not come from a family that gave me a $200,000 allowance every year beginning at the age of 3. As I recall, my allowance was 25 cents a week. I had something more valuable. I had the role model of a father who had unbelievable courage in journeying across an ocean with no money in his pocket to start a new and better life. I did not come from a family of privilege that prepared me to entertain people on television by telling workers, "You're fired." I came from a family who knew all too well the frightening power employers can have over everyday workers. I did not come from a family that could afford to send my brother and me to an elite boarding school. In fact, I was educated proudly in high-quality public schools here in Brooklyn and began my higher education right here on this campus. This is what I believe from the bottom of my heart. If we stand together, believing in justice and human dignity, believing in love and compassion, if we stand together, brothers and sisters, the future of this country is extraordinary, and there is nothing we will not be able to accomplish. Thank you all very much.